Hi, everybody. Thanks for joining us here on the Comstock channel. I'm Marlon Bowling with you, and we always enjoy talking with you about different topics that are ag related. And just a reminder, as always, make sure that you like, subscribe, and share this video, and make sure everybody else can enjoy the information that we like to provide on here as well. Well, I'm pleased to be joined by Emily Oberbrockling, and she happens to be from Northeast Iowa, I believe. Is that right, Emily?
Yes, I am located north of Dubuque, Iowa, up in a town called Garnavillo in the Rolling Hills.
The rolling hills, man, that's beautiful up there. I've had a chance to go through there a few times and love that countryside there. I actually interviewed your hubby a while back. I believe both of you had a chance to participate in that Brazil farm tour that the Comstock Investments put on a while back, and you were on that with him, right?
Right, yeah. The Comstock group hosted the tour, and it was a phenomenal experience. We got to see agriculture in a totally different world to us, but it was a great experience, and I would go on it again if I could.
Well, that's awesome to hear, and I'm glad you had a chance to go on that. I know I wanted to talk about some of the work you do here in Iowa and how that all relates. I'm sure that was kind of an eye-opening experience for you, viewing how farming is done in Brazil and how the operations actually do operate there. You look at things from kind of the financial side of the business. And you were telling me before we came on the video here that you have a banking background and you actually work now with land appraisals and that sort of thing. Give me a little background on what you do right now, the company you're with, and what you do there.
Yeah, so I am a full-time certified general appraiser. Essentially, that means I have the license to appraise farmland, essentially, or I could appraise commercial properties, but essentially, I'm focused on farmland, and I work for People's Company, which is a full-service land brokerage, farm management, appraisal. We do have a vested interest in energy development, anything to do with land, and we are certainly helpful on that part of the team. I'm licensed in Iowa, Wisconsin, and Illinois.
I'm fascinated to learn what you have been finding out here over the course of the past year. I've been talking with people all along. And of course, for example, the grain markets, which would be a big influencer where you are there for farm income. They've been sliding for about the past year, and there's been a lot of concern about farmer income. I've been talking a lot with analysts lately that they say the farmers really have not sold as much as they have in recent years. By this time of year, they're kind of relatively, as they say, undersold right now. And if that's the case, I just wondered how that's been playing into land values and land sales. Have things slowed down? Have the prices come down? Are people holding back? Or what do you pick up out there?
So, as an appraiser, I will say we're not predictors of the future, but we are analyzers of past market behavior. And what we're seeing in the market trends, so to speak, is that we're kind of at a plateau. We certainly had a rise up in the land market the last couple of years, specifically from late 2020 going into 2021 and 22. We saw an increase of land values almost up to like 35%, a lot in Iowa and the Midwest states. And this last year, 23, definitely a slowdown in any major jumps in the land market. And a lot of what we do as appraisers at People's Company, we actually track live auctions. And based on the live auction data that we track, we value or we look at the trends on a dollar per CSR 2 point. And the last year, and specific in the last quarter, we were seeing the trend stay at about $175 to $180 per CSR 2 point. And that's equivalent to what's 85% tillable or higher on highly productive farm ground in Iowa specifically. So And the last year, I'll say trends show that -1% to 5% as far as a value increase on farmland over the last year in a lot of areas.
Isn't it true that the land values always lag the actual like farm gate prices for the products by a year or two? How do you look at that?
I would say it does have a little bit of a lag time because it obviously is influenced the buyers in the market. Maybe it is a farmer. If their capital or their cash is reduced, they don't have as much, capital to put down on those land transactions. So they're having to borrow more money on those properties potentially. And it, you look at your balance sheet or your cash flow and you're going, do I really want to be paying that cash rent equivalent of upwards of $1,000 per acre? It's tight if you don't have that cash available to make a more significant down payment on those farms.
I have heard cases in other states where there's a little bit of a concerning trend that there seems to be a lot of outside money coming into the states, like either big operations or maybe investor groups really trying to pick up some large acreages here lately. Is that a growing trend, do you think, or is that just maybe making a hill out of a little molehill?
I think there's always the headlines that catch people's attention, like Bill Gates buying farm ground or whoever, put the name out there. Investor groups have always been around. It's a matter of what you call them. Um, and really, they're good in some aspects because they're helping support a base of land values. There's always going to be that neighborhood farmer to farmer competition. And that's certainly an indicator, but investors are helpful too in the market. So I wouldn't necessarily call it a bad thing. It's just sometimes if the farmers aren't able to, produce that cash to buy the land, maybe the investor group can. Maybe that farmer just rents it back from them as well. So it all plays out.
Has there been an increase in inquiries about purchasing land these days, or is that pretty constant, do you think?
It's somewhat constant. I will say the effects of inflation and interest rates have made the interest from outside market or maybe that investor pool definitely kind of wonder, okay, what hard assets do I really want to invest in? Maybe it's slowed down a little bit from that outside pool, but from a land investment myself, and we definitely see the benefit of what I call a high quality appreciating asset. So it's always a good thing to have some sort of tie to as far as one of those assets that are going to appreciate over time.
Do you think one of the overarching factors in the land values moving forward might be whatever the Fed does?
I do think they have a influence on the market for sure. Those interest rates do have some influence for what, like I said before, how much capital is available to the buyers of land and what they're willing to invest in and see what their return is. Some people will say that land has a lower, what we call a capitalization rate, but on the long term has a very, very good return.
Now, I wanted to kind of tie this back to your trip that you were a part of in Brazil recently. Did you have a chance to talk with farmer operators down there to see how they're holding up financially or not?
We did, between the Portuguese that I learned a little bit, But I think Matthew did a great job of interpreting for us. So we did kind of ask some hard questions, and one of the questions we tried getting out of a couple of the guys is, okay, how much did you pay for the land back in, when they started their group, or when they started? And the one gentleman explained that it was about, and based on the conversions we came up with, and I made some notes. So things are bought by sacks uh, uh, of soybeans, so to speak, per hectare, sacks per hectare,
Hmm.
versus what we would say, okay, dollars per acre. Um, so based on the conversions that we came up with back in the 80s when they first started, maybe it was around $100 per acre, versus today, valuation wise, is probably that $10,000 to $12,000 per acre.
Wow.
So that's obviously a significant growth and appreciation in land values there as well.
So is their economy being hurt as much as ours here the last couple of years?
I would, I mean, they have the same influences on their expenses, inputs, and everything else. They're affected on um, cash rent and those factors as well. Even just the transportation costs and getting the soybeans to market, so to speak. The weather-wise has not been favorable. We definitely saw where the soybean crop is uh, a lot lower than years past. So, that 40 bushel per acre versus maybe in years past they're seeing that 60 to 80 bushel. So,
Yeah, I
not
think
as
that'll
great.
be one thing that we really need to watch going forward is maybe what their break evens are going to be compared to U.S. farmer break evens. And, everything is relative to the exchange rates at any given time there. But boy, if they would get the upper hand and they have a larger acreage too, that could be problematic moving forward. But I'm glad you were able to point that out. Any takeaways from now that you're back here in Iowa? Anything that you're watching out for here this year in farmland values that could be maybe a trigger point for an alert for you?
Like I said, and interest rates are always an influence in the market. If it is an election year, so who knows what kind of magical government programs come out of situations, we'll put it that way.
Yeah.
Certainly, if there's an influx, based on, you lost so much money, well, we're going to give you so many dollars based on, of course, you got to qualify for all of this, but sometimes those programs do help farmers with an influx and capital too. So
Yeah, it's funny how that
politically,
historically comes around,
yes.
isn't it?
But don't always count on the government. I mean, there's always
Right.
something to influence otherwise. But
I
uh,
appreciate that. Do you have some contact info for your company there in case somebody has more questions for you and they want to learn a little more about this? Do you have a website or anything they can go to?
yeah, if you go to peoplescompany.com, or you can certainly email me at emily@peoplescompany.com. Certainly feel to reach out if you have any questions going forward.
That's awesome. Well, Emily, thanks for taking a little time to chat with us, and I'm glad you're back home safe and sound from the trip to Brazil. I know it was kind of um, a long ordeal for a lot of folks because of all the travel and everything, but from what I understand, it was well worth it. So thanks for the recap and a look at land values here in the U.S. I appreciate that very much. It's Emily Oberbrockling. She is from Northeast Iowa, and that's going to do it for this particular edition here. I want to remind you to make sure you share this video with your friends and relatives out there, and also make sure you can check up with all the reports we have through the Comstock channel. There's so much more than just our video podcasts, and you can find out what we have to offer. Just go to comstock.com/report and you'll be amazed at how much stuff we have to offer through all sorts of other avenues. So I encourage you to do that. Thanks again for joining us. For producer Brianne Hendrickson, I'm Marlon Bowling. See you next time on the Comstock Channel. Thanks for joining us on our Comstock YouTube channel. Don't forget, you can also find us on Facebook and TikTok as well.